As a high-producing realtor closing tens of millions in volume, it can feel amazing, but ignoring your own personal financial future can lead to years lost. Here's a quick story. A few years ago at the Chelsea Phillips Group, we had a realtor that was closing 40 units in their first year, which is amazing. They were helping both clients and investors reach their property ownership goals. What more could you want? And they had done more real estate and had made more money than they had ever before in their life. And so they started looking for an investment property, searching far and wide, understanding the market, the different tips and tricks, learning from investors throughout. And finally, they ended up finding this killer deal. And they were ecstatic to be able to go through and achieve their property ownership goals, just like they had been helping their clients. But under the surface, everything wasn't as great as it seemed. They had ignored their personal finances, meaning they didn't understand their financing options. They didn't understand how to speak with a CPA, and they didn't even understand where they were going, what their goals were. And it ended up with them missing their killer deal. And I tell you this because that realtor, it was me. I missed it. And now I'm the director of agent success and client value at the Chelsea Phillips Group, where we consistently teach agents, both new and experienced, how to close 5 transactions a month consistently while building themselves, their clients, and avoiding the mistakes that we made along the way. And today I want to go through a few lessons that we learned. So those are going to be your financing, your taxes, and your goals. Above all, you know that you should buy a property. If you're a realtor in Savannah, you're already past that point of kind of understanding that you should. So we're not going to go into the surface level stuff. We're going to go into more the nitty gritty about how you can go about actually achieving these goals. Through financing, there's 2 routes that we know. You have your traditional and you have your creative. And we have some different opinions about creative financing, but ultimately, a lot of people have found success through seller financing or wraparound mortgages, which is great if, one, you're under 2 years in real estate, or your taxes haven't been set up in a way that really the conventional route would be great for you. And so those 2 take a lot of work. And so if you're busy actually closing that volume in real estate, then you're going to be focused on that versus actually going through and door knocking and doing things like that. So set good expectations with yourself and say, I need to take this off the table because I can't put in the work to actually reach that level of product from doing that work. Then if you're going to go the traditional route, we all know and love Freddie and Franny, which is going to be where you're going to get your lowest down payment, your lowest rates, your lowest everything. And it's going to be a lot financially better money in your pocket if you can set yourself up to be able to use those programs. Now, if you can't, there's also a few other options. So DSCR and your deposit loans are 2 options that we've seen come up more and more recently. And the DSCR is basically where it values the property as an asset versus just your own income. And so it says you're going to use this as a rental property. And so we're going to value the rental income 1% or 1.5, 2%. Every lender has their own requirements for it. But that way they only check your credit and it's able to be a little bit better if your taxes aren't all the way in order, or if you have a bunch of properties. That's another way to do it. And your issue with that, though, is that the rates are going to be higher, down payments are going to be higher, and there's no real way to get around that unless you're focused on your taxes. And when we look at the tax structure, we have gone to our CPAs as a realtor would, right? So we show up to them, we have a list of write-offs that we did for this year. Maybe we have receipts, maybe it's in QuickBooks, maybe we don't have any of that. And we're just like, I need to get the taxes done. I'm busy selling real estate. I'll see you in 3 months, bye. And what that ends up being is like a first-time home buyer coming to you and saying the same exact thing. And so what that leads to is they're not able to act on your fiduciary duty. Just like if you were helping a first-time homebuyer, you weren't able to act on theirs. So if a first-time homebuyer never told you the neighborhood that they wanted, how many beds, baths, what their family was like, what their lifestyle was like, how would you be able to advise appropriately to be able to give them maybe some tips and tricks on what neighborhoods or advice on what neighborhoods that they could go through and look at and hopefully find the home of their dreams? And this works the same way with your CPA. And so if you're coming to them with your list of latte write-offs like we have, like I did my first year in real estate, and saving, let's say 20 grand of the coffees that you had with clients or the car washes or the new laptop or whatever that is, and giving them this list of write-offs, and you save that 20K from the IRS, and you beat them because you didn't pay as much in taxes. The next time that you go to get a loan, what the loan officer is going to look at, and it's going to say, oh, in 2023, Matthew didn't make any money. He didn't make any money, even though I made plenty of money. I just bought laptops. Maybe I bought a new truck. Maybe I did a couple other things that made it look like I didn't make any money to the government. And that ends up costing you. It ends up costing you. Maybe you have to do a DSCR loan now, which is a higher down payment. So maybe instead of, you're buying a $500,000 house, instead of putting down 3% on that or 10%, now you're having to put down 20. And so that it ends up being a lot more out of pocket in the long term than just saving, a couple of pennies on your taxes. And so we'd urge you to go through what we've done and determine our goals first. And when we say this, it's because there's different goals for everyone out there. And so some people, they want to make their career in real estate be, I'm the advisor for Savannah, Georgia, for this area. I want to be the best. I want to know everything. I want to be the expert, absolute expert for our clients. And when you're doing that, it is genuinely hard to actually be able to go through and knock on doors for seller financing or wraparound mortgages or even the DSCR renovation loans and investments and things like that. What do doctors do? Doctors, they come to us and they say, hey, I want to buy a piece of real estate. And we're like, hey, these are some great investment options. A little bit of elbow grease. It'll be this much more in equity. And we give them these options. And they say, oh, no, I want the single family rental that's completely redone. And I'm going to put a tenant in there for, 5 years at below market rent. And the reason why they do that is to write off on their taxes, and because that's a different strategy for doctors because they're focused on saving lives. And so if we're focused on saving people's real estate lives, then we need to consider what our actual options are. And so a part of that is going to be, do we have the time to invest with renovating properties, or are we going to buy a house for ourselves, or are we going to go through and, hire out contractors, and what does that look like for us based on our future goals? If you haven't read The One Thing by Gary Keller, it is a fantastic book, and it goes through the details, not just in real estate, but in your own life, about why you're doing what you're doing and where you're going. You can run really, really fast, but if you're in the dark without a flashlight, where are you going? You're expending a lot of energy, you're making a lot of movement, but you're not really going anywhere. And so you need to determine where you're going so that you can tell your CPA what they need to do for your taxes, and then you can understand what financing options that you would have. And nobody's going to do this for you. You have to take those first steps to be able to understand that I want to put in this much effort for my real estate. I want to buy this many properties, have this kind of lifestyle in the next 10 years. You need to make it smart. And when you make a goal smart, you write it down, and then you measure it, you time bound it, you make it specific. And at the end of this, you go and you tell a friend, a mentor, a family member, a partner, and you tell them that this is my goal to be able to achieve this. And that way you have a partner that's holding you accountable. And when you go through and you have that goal, you have your taxes and you have your financing figured out, you're going to be able to go through and buy properties and hit your goals of success without feeling like you're falling behind, without making irrational decisions, without getting into a property that may not be the best for you. And that's truly what we're about. That's truly what the Chelsea Phillips Group is about. We don't just do this for ourselves, but also for our clients. And so if you know anybody that is hungry, value-driven, and wants to provide value to their clients, let us know. We're looking for 3 new team members to help out with the summer market, and we're ecstatic to hire some new people who know their real estate career. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to book a link on my calendar. I'm happy to discuss any questions that you may have. And because we want to see the value of real estate throughout people's lives, not just our own.